No doubt, if you watch cable news, you're hearing all about the labor shortage. We got a labor shortage, a tight labor market, because nobody wants to work anymore. Nobody wants to work anymore. Everybody wants to be lazy. People are being paid not to work and all that. I mean, we've seen the signs. We've seen people on Fox News that are complaining that, oh no, even when we offered bonuses and things, people just wanted to stay home. They wanted to watch Netflix or whatever. Okay, whatever. They don't want to work. They don't want to work. So now a Florida man decided to test whether or not this is truly the case at least in his area of Fort Myers. And he found something really interesting. So now this gentleman is Joey Holtz, and he applied to 60 different entry-level jobs. So again, these are the places that are screaming the loudest for workers. These are your restaurants, your McDonald's, your Applebee's, your grocery stores. Again, the places that are generally paying the lowest and have actually, been some of the more dangerous places to work during the pandemic. As a result of repeated clashes with customers who are anti-mask, and then of course just the threat of the virus itself. And so he applied to 60 of these different jobs, and the results, of course, are none too surprising. So this was reported by Alex Galbraith of the Orlando Weekly, and he reported that Holtz saw a discrepancy between the rhetoric of employers and the facts on the ground in Fort Myers. Many pointed to the expanded unemployment benefits as the reason they weren't seeing applicants, but jobless claims have steadily dropped in Florida, ended the enhanced benefits several months before he even began applying. So understand that I bring that context up because that's really, really important. It's a talking point used by the right. See, we're paying people too much to sit home. We got to end the enhanced unemployment benefits because then people will go back to work because we're paying them too much. Why are we paying people to sit home? Well, first of all, pandemic. Saying that was kind of the point. But then again, you had so many businesses that ended up having to shutter or at least close down temporarily, and you had to have a safety net for these workers in order to get it so that the people made it through the pandemic. So they did the enhanced unemployment benefits, but then again, several months ago, they started taking it away. And so, yet Republicans still are blaming those enhanced benefits that are no longer there on the fact that there are these companies that no longer can find people to work for them. It's funny because, you always hear the argument when we argue, for example, for higher wages, right? For minimum wage workers, like we should raise the minimum wage to $15, $22 an hour. Because 15 is pretty outdated at this point, and it really should be around 23 to 25. And so when you make that argument, it's like, whoa, you can't do that. If you want a better job, you just go get a better job. You don't want to work for minimum wage. You should get a real job. Now, these are the same people that are getting mad when people are like, all right, I'll go get a better job then. Fine, I'll get one that actually pays me more. The same ones that are screaming, oh my God, no, I can't get a burger. Well, what's going on? No, nobody wants to work anymore. I can't get my hamburger at 3 a.m. and my shake. This is the worst thing that's ever happened in my entire life. I want to see the manager. I want to see the manager right now. What are you talking about? The manager's back in the back frying burgers. So it's almost as if they don't value labor. Weird. But all right. So now they say, that that the workers are lazy and they're getting too much money and that we should end the employment benefits, which we already had. And by the way, analysis found that ending the benefits had no impact on hiring whatsoever. Lazy workers, though. It's all the lazy workers, right? So now I'm going to get into the real reason. But first, the results. In all, Holtz, after applying to 60 different jobs, got only one in-person interview. Now, again, these are all businesses that claim that they were understaffed on social media. And during that one interview, the business owner, again, they promised a certain wage and certain benefits in the listing. That owner attempted to walk back the pay of $10 an hour offered in that listing. Oh, did I say $10 in the list? No. We actually meant $8.75. Oh, really? Did you? I thought you needed workers. What's the deal? What's going on here? Why the bait and switch? I thought you needed people. Now, here's the thing. A lot of these businesses that still have employees, obviously, those employees understand that they're massively overworked now because there's not enough staff to fill them because they don't pay them enough. So now the workers that are still stuck there are doubly screwed over. Not only are they not getting paid the better pay that they deserve, but they're also ending up working longer hours. And by the way, there's a lot of wage theft that goes on in this situation like this as well. So, for example, if you have to work overtime, if you work overtime, which is anything over 40 hours, well, you should be getting paid overtime, right? And generally, it works differently for tipped employees than it does for standard employees. So I'm talking more like McDonald's, etc. So if you are doing overtime, which a lot of workers that are left in these jobs have to do, or if they find a way to shift people around, and make sure that they get like 39 and a half hours instead of 40, so they don't apply for overtime, or I'm sorry, so they can't actually get the overtime or don't qualify. Well, they'll do that. Or they'll just work people overtime and not pay them. That's literal wage theft. And by the way, that's one of the very common ways that a lot of these companies do wage theft. And there are some people that don't understand or don't know that you can sue workers for back pay and damages. Or even if you do know, you'd still have to hire a lawyer and you'd actually have to sue in order to do that. And so the situation going on is they're crushing their current employees to the brink with no increase in pay, no increase in benefits, while at the same time screaming about how nobody wants to work. Oh, why doesn't anybody want to work for me? Because you treat them like crap, you don't pay them enough. Now, Holtz put it perfectly in a viral Facebook post after this little experiment. He said, "Are they desperate for help? Yes, according to their loud lamentations on Facebook. But so far, one interview where the advertised hours and pay were misrepresented after 58 applications says y'all aren't desperate for workers. You just miss your slaves." True. And by the way, let me just know, too, because there's an important context here as far as being able to pay more, okay? Because, again, you're going to hear the talking point of, we would love to pay you more, but we just can't. We just can't afford to do so. We just don't have the money. You understand, right? So just come on back and, with a temporary bonus or maybe not even a bonus at all, just come back to work. Understand that most of these corporations, through the pandemic, have made massive profits. Corporate profits have soared to record highs while you had millions of people dealing with the pandemic, barely making enough to scrape by. John Deere. John Deere is a good example. John Deere just went on strike for the first time since 1986. Why? Because the company made billions of dollars in profits and was able to buy back $2 billion worth of stock and pay their CEO, John May, $15.6 million in executive compensation, but they only offered about 5 to 6% pay increase in their recent contract. That was a union negotiated contract. The workers voted it down 90%. Because they sit there and they look at the CEO making bank, millions of dollars, over 220 times what the average John Deere worker makes. That's what the CEO brought home in 2020 during the pandemic. And they look at that and said, "What? Why are we getting fucked over? You're screwing us over. We took cutbacks. We took cuts. And we've been working our asses off. You've been increasing the price of your products. I think the price of a new tractor is like gone up by 5 to 8% in the last year. They're making buku bucks. And yet, oh no, we're not going to pay our employees very well though. We're going to continue to keep employees, we're barely a little bit of a raise, but not that much. By the way, inflation is also up by quite a bit. I think it's up by 5.3%. Cost of products, goods and services. And so if you're not getting over that for a pay raise, you've lost money. Disaster. And by the way, the John Deere, their profits were actually expected to get bigger. So workers, on the one hand, are getting crushed and getting blamed for being too lazy and not wanting to work, while the CEOs have made billions of dollars more during a deadly pandemic. I mean, I think the problem is obvious here, and it ain't the workers. And so, yes, regular workers understand too, people do want to work. They don't want to work for peanuts. They don't want to work for your, tiny little wage while you go and buy a second or third yacht. It's the same with the 1,400 workers striking at Kellogg, the other workers at Kaiser Permanente, and other places where you have strikes that are ongoing. In fact, you have former Labor Secretary Robert Reich, who is now arguing that this is an example of a de facto general strike. It's not a labor shortage. It's workers saying we have had enough with low pay and bad working conditions. And I'm glad. I'm really, really happy to see this. And I'm glad that Holtz exposed what's happening not only around him, but I think you can definitely see the point that it's probably happening in other places around the country. Very, very likely that this is happening. And so it looks like we are actually starting to get a resurgence of labor power in this country. And I am absolutely loving it. Let's keep it going. Keep it going. Support striking workers. Don't be a scab. Don't buy the products while they're on strike. And if possible, see about either donating to a strike fund, or setting one up yourself, doing something like that to support workers. Because understand, there's a lot of talk about a general strike, and I love the idea. Now, the only issue here is what we have to do to make sure something like that could happen is build up labor power and make sure that workers, and this is the most important part, that workers have the resources to be able to outlast the bosses and the companies. Very, very important, because people got bills to pay. People have to have that support in order to stand up long enough to negotiate a fair contract. And so mutual aid, very important, as well as labor power. Let's build those things, build them, and support labor so we can finally even the playing field for workers in this country, so that people can actually get what they're owed for their labor. If you enjoyed this video, please give us a like and share with your friends. You can subscribe and help out the channel by becoming a patron. It's patreon.com/Jeff Waldorf, or you can become a channel member as well by hitting the join button below.